Welcome to the realm of science fiction. Don't forget to like and subscribe for more content. Enjoy listening. Ryan Sanford was a wealthy scientist who had earned his reputation at a young age. His sharp intellect and logical scientific theories gained him respect and admiration from people worldwide. One day, his phone rang unexpectedly. It was a close friend of his, also a scientist who seemed agitated and in need of advice. Ryan answered the call, listening quietly as his friend explained the bizarre situation. According to him, he was in the company of an alien woman, yes, an alien, who had a peculiar problem. She was blind. His friend further claimed that some earthly compounds might possess the potential to restore her sight permanently. Although Ryan found the idea absurd and unconvincing, curiosity got the better of him. He told his friend he wanted to meet this woman in person. Without hesitation, the friend agreed and promised to bring her to Ryan's mansion. Ryan lived in an enormous, luxurious villa with a state-of-the-art laboratory in the basement. He figured if there was even a remote possibility of helping the woman, this was the place to try. Hours passed, and Ryan found himself growing impatient with anticipation. Finally, the doorbell rang. Opening the door, Ryan found his friend holding the woman delicately by her arm. "Here she is," his friend said hurriedly, guiding the woman inside. "I've got to run, urgent business. We'll catch up later." Without giving Ryan a chance to ask questions, the friend disappeared into the night, leaving him alone with the mysterious visitor. Something about the hasty departure made Ryan uneasy, but he brushed the feeling aside. Turning to the woman, he studied her carefully. She was otherworldly, both ethereal and reserved. Her quiet demeanor intrigued him. "What's your name?" Ryan asked gently. "Ruya," she whispered softly, her voice barely audible. Ruya was painfully shy, withdrawn in a way that suggested both her blindness and alien nature left her feeling vulnerable. Ryan could sense her discomfort, but his fascination only deepened. Without wasting more time, he invited her downstairs to his laboratory. He guided her to a reclining bed in the center of the room and examined her eyes carefully. As he studied her features, he couldn't help but notice how strikingly beautiful her eyes were, even in their lifeless state. "You have beautiful eyes," he murmured, astonished. Ruya flinched slightly, offering a quiet, "Thank you." Ryan stared closer, shocked to find that her eyes were mismatched. One glowing faintly orange, the other shimmering with a green hue. It was unlike anything he had ever seen. Suppressing his skepticism, Ryan retrieved one of his massive encyclopedic books, flipping through its pages for answers. He formulated a unique mixture, risky concoction that in theory could stimulate her eyesight. "This may hurt a little," he warned, carefully applying the drops to her eyes. Ruya let out a small cry of pain, her hands clutching the bed tightly. Moments later, she fell silent once more, her face calm but pained. "I didn't expect immediate results," Ryan admitted, standing back. "We'll try again tomorrow. If nothing changes, there's no point in wearing ourselves out." Ruya nodded somberly. "I understand," she replied quietly, sitting up. That night, Ryan offered her a place to stay. He felt it was only fair, given the circumstances. He attempted to call his friend to update him, but his calls went unanswered. Strange as it was, Ryan chose not to dwell on it. The next day, they descended into the lab again. Ryan repeated the treatment, but once more there was no visible improvement. Despite feeling frustrated, Ryan assured her that she could stay another night, determined to give her one last chance. The following morning, Ryan approached Ruya with gentle optimism. "Good morning. How are you feeling? Any changes?" She shook her head. "No, I still can't see." Disappointment weighed heavily on Ryan. He had truly hoped he could help her. Resigned, he told Ruya he would contact his friend to take her back. Yet, when he tried calling, there was still no response. Deciding it wasn't urgent, Ryan turned to Ruya with a faint smile. "I'm going to take a quick shower. My phone's here. If it rings, just call out for me." "All right," Ruya replied softly. Ryan disappeared into the bathroom. The past few days had been so busy that he hadn't had a moment to himself. Under the warm water, he finally began to relax. After finishing, He grabbed a towel but didn't bother dressing fully before hearing Ruya call his name. Panicked, thinking something might have happened, he rushed into the room, forgetting his state of undress. The moment he entered, Ruya let out a piercing scream. Ryan froze. Wait, aren't you blind? Ruya's face lit up with wonder and joy. I can see, she cried, tears streaming down her cheeks. I don't believe it, my sight is back. Overcome with emotion, she sprang forward, throwing her arms around him. Ryan, both shocked and embarrassed, quickly wrapped himself in the towel and retreated to get dressed. When he returned, Ruya was still beaming, her mismatched eyes shimmering brilliantly. Mr. Ryan, she said softly, stepping closer, please tell your friend we need more time. I owe you so much, and I can't leave until I've properly repaid you. With a grateful smile, she leaned in and kissed him gently on the lips. Ryan, caught off guard, felt his resolve wavering. Her beauty, charm, and gratitude were undeniable, yet he tried to remain composed. Nevertheless, when he reached his friend's voicemail, he echoed Ruya's request, asking for some time without interruption. Over the next few weeks, Ryan and Ruya grew inseparable. Her eyes were fully healed, and her vibrant personality blossomed in Ryan's presence. She became not only his confidant, but also his closest companion. The bond they shared was unlike anything Ryan had experienced. For the first time in his life, the logical and calculated scientist found himself enjoying someone's company beyond mere intellectual pursuits. Ruya, in turn, began to open up, revealing bits and pieces of her past and her culture from beyond the stars. Ryan was fascinated. Every evening, after his experiments or professional duties were done, they would sit together in the grand living room. Sometimes they spoke for hours, other times they sat in silence, comfortable in each other's presence. Ruya would often gaze out the window at the starry night sky, her mismatched eyes reflecting a longing that Ryan couldn't ignore. Do you miss it? Ryan asked her one evening, his voice gentle. Ruya smiled faintly, her fingers tracing the edge of a crystal glass in her hands. Yes, she admitted. I miss my home, the way you humans miss your families or childhood memories. But she turned to face him, her expression softening. Here with you, I feel something new, something I never thought I would experience. Ryan's heart skipped a beat. What is that? Belonging, Ruya replied. It's strange. I was sent here with a purpose I didn't fully understand, and yet meeting you feels like fate. Ryan was silent for a moment, her words settling deep within him. He wanted to ask her more about her purpose, about how she ended up on Earth, and why she had been blind. But he didn't push. Their connection had grown delicate and sacred, something he didn't want to risk shattering with too many questions. As the days passed, Ryan noticed subtle changes in Ruya. Her energy seemed to shift, as though something unseen weighed on her shoulders. One night, after an evening of laughter and shared stories, Ryan found Ruya standing by the window again, staring at the moonlit sky with a distant, sorrowful expression. Ruya? Ryan approached her cautiously. Is something wrong? She turned, her mismatched eyes shimmering as though holding back tears. Ryan, there's something I need to tell you, she said, her voice trembling. I've stayed here longer than I should have. I was only supposed to remain on Earth until my sight returned. Now that I can see, they'll come for me soon. Ryan felt a chill run through him. Who will come for you? My people, Ruya explained softly. They're watching me from afar. I've broken the rules by staying too long. She paused, struggling to find the right words. I wanted to stay because of you, but my time here is running out. The weight of her words hit Ryan like a blow. He couldn't imagine losing her now, not after everything they had shared. What happens if you don't go back? Ruya looked away, her expression unreadable. It's not an option, she whispered. They will take me, whether I'm ready or not. Ryan clenched his fists, frustration bubbling inside him. The idea of losing Ruya felt unbearable, and for the first time in his life, he felt powerless. Science couldn't solve this. Logic couldn't undo it. We'll figure something out, he said firmly, though he didn't know how. There must be a way. Ruya smiled sadly and reached out, placing a hand on his cheek. "You've done enough for me already, Ryan. You gave me sight. You gave me a reason to smile. I'll cherish this time forever." Over the following days, Ryan became consumed with a desperate determination. He couldn't bear the thought of Ruya being taken from him. He spent hours in his lab researching, trying to find a way to stop what felt inevitable. Ruya, meanwhile, stayed close, as though savoring every last moment they had together. Then, on a night darker than any other, it happened. Ryan was in his laboratory when he heard a strange hum reverberating through the walls of his mansion. The sound was otherworldly, vibrating deep into his bones. He rushed upstairs and found Ruya standing in the center of the living room, her mismatched eyes glowing faintly. "Ryan," she said softly, her voice almost drowned out by the rising hum. "They're here." A blinding light flooded the room, piercing through the windows and illuminating Ruya's figure in an ethereal glow. Ryan shielded his eyes, his heart racing. He could see shadowy figures, tall and unrecognizable, appearing within the light. "No!" Ryan shouted, stepping toward her. "Ruya, don't go. Stay with me." Ruya turned to him, tears streaming down her face. "I wish I could, Ryan. I wish I could stay forever." Before Ryan could reach her, the light intensified, engulfing the entire room. He stumbled back, his vision overwhelmed by the brilliance. When the light faded, the mansion fell silent. Ruya was gone. Ryan collapsed to his knees, staring at the empty space where she had stood moments before. The room felt colder, emptier. His mind refused to accept it. She couldn't just be gone. In the days that followed, Ryan wandered through his mansion in a daze. Everywhere he looked, he saw reminders of her. The chair she always sat in, the windows she gazed through at night, the faint scent she had left behind. He tried to distract himself with work, but nothing filled the void. One night, as Ryan sat alone in his lab, a small glimmer of light appeared on his desk. It was a tiny glowing object, a crystal unlike anything he had seen before. He picked it up carefully, and as he held it, a faint warmth spread through his hand. The warmth wasn't just physical. It felt like a comforting presence, reminder of Ruya's gentle touch. For a brief moment, it was as though she were standing beside him once again. Ryan turned the crystal in his palm, observing how the glow pulsed faintly, like a heartbeat. He brought it closer to his ear, hoping to hear something, anything that might give him a clue about what this strange object was. To his surprise, Ruya's voice emerged from the crystal, soft and distant, like a whisper carried on the wind. "Ryan, I'm still with you." Ryan's breath hitched, and he clutched the crystal tighter, his heart pounding. "Ruya," he called out, his voice trembling. "Is that you?" There was no response, only the faint hum of energy radiating from the crystal. But Ryan knew, he felt, that it was her. Somehow, Ruya had left behind this final connection, a piece of herself that transcended time and space. The crystal's glow seemed to brighten in response to his emotions, as though it were attuned to him. Determined to uncover the crystal's secrets, Ryan dove back into his research. Days turned into nights as he analyzed the object, running every test he could think of. The crystal was unlike any known element on Earth. Its composition defied logic, and yet it was stable, alive almost. The warmth it emitted never faded, and whenever Ryan held it, Ruya's voice would echo softly, though only fragments. "I miss you. Thank you. Don't give up." These whispers were both a comfort and a torment. Ryan couldn't ignore the possibility that this crystal was a message, or perhaps a key to something greater. He grew obsessed with the idea that it might help him reach Ruya again, or at the very least uncover where she had gone. Late one night, after hours of fruitless tests, Ryan sat at his desk with the crystal in his hand, staring at the starry sky through the large window. Exhaustion weighed on him, but his mind refused to rest. He whispered to the crystal, almost like a prayer, "Ruya, if you can hear me, please, I need to see you again. Tell me how." To his shock, the crystal pulsed brightly, flooding the room with light. Ryan stumbled back, shielding his eyes. When the glow dimmed, a faint, shimmering symbol hovered above the crystal, a constellation he didn't recognize drawn in glowing lines of energy. Ryan grabbed a notebook and quickly sketched the formation, his hands shaking. This is a map, he muttered to himself. The symbol wasn't random, it was a cluster of stars. Ryan realized Ruya had left him a clue, a path to follow. He spent the next several weeks studying the constellation, using every astronomical resource he could access. It wasn't easy. This cluster didn't match any known map of the stars visible from Earth. But Ryan refused to give up. Finally, he discovered it. Hidden deep within archived star charts, the constellation matched a system located far beyond what current human technology could reach, an uncharted part of the universe. It was faint, almost undetectable, but it was real. "This is where she's from," Ryan whispered, his eyes fixed on the map. "And this is where I'll find her." The realization sparked a fire in him. Ryan, the man of science and logic, now found himself pursuing what others would call impossible. He poured his fortune and resources into developing a project unlike anything humanity had ever seen. Plans for a spacecraft, a vessel capable of deep space travel, filled his lab. His mansion became a hub of secret activity as engineers and scientists, sworn to secrecy, worked day and night to bring his vision to life. Months turned into years. Ryan aged, but his resolve never wavered. The crystal remained by his side, its warmth a constant reminder of Ruya's presence and the promise he had made to himself. When the spacecraft was finally complete, it stood as a marvel of human ingenuity, powered by technology inspired by the very crystal Ruya had left behind. On the day of the launch, Ryan stood alone in the cockpit of the vessel, the crystal resting in his palm. His voice was steady as he whispered, "I'm coming, Ruya." The engines roared to life, and the ship ascended into the heavens, leaving Earth far behind. Ryan's heart raced as he gazed out at the stars, the vast emptiness of space stretching before him. The constellation he had mapped out guided his way, its glowing outline burned into his memory. Days turned into weeks as the ship traveled deeper into the unknown. Ryan spent his time studying the crystal, which pulsed brighter the closer he got to the destination. It was as though the object knew where they were going, guiding him like a beacon through the blackness of space. Finally, after what felt like an eternity, Ryan's ship approached a distant star system. The view outside his window took his breath away. Planets with vibrant colors orbited a radiant sun, their surfaces shimmering with signs of life. The crystal in his hand grew so warm that it almost burned. "That's it," Ryan whispered, his voice choked with emotion. "I found you." The ship descended onto one of the planets, its surface lush with alien beauty. Ryan stepped out, the crystal still glowing in his hand. The air was rich and alive, filled with strange yet harmonious sounds. He felt a presence, something familiar, something he hadn't felt in years. And then he saw her. Ruya stood at the edge of a crystal-clear lake, her mismatched eyes shimmering with tears. She looked exactly as he remembered, her beauty untouched by time. "Ryan," she whispered, her voice carrying across the wind. Ryan's heart swelled, and he walked toward her, unable to speak. When they finally stood face to face, Ruya smiled, her hands reaching out to cup his face. "You found me," she said softly. "Even when I thought it was impossible, you found me." Ryan let out a shaky breath, tears streaming down his face. "I promised I would." Ruya leaned forward, resting her forehead against his. The crystal between them pulsed one final time before dissolving into light, its energy flowing into both of them. In that moment, Ryan knew he had done what no one else could. He had crossed the boundaries of space and time for the one he loved. "I'm home," Ruya whispered. "And so am I," Ryan replied, his voice full of peace. The stars above seemed to shine brighter that night, as though celebrating their reunion, a love story written across the universe, unbound by distance, time, or fate.